Hello everyone. Wait, it's too close. Hello everyone, I am VAOS and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. Wow, huh? The video that I made a couple days ago, I got some serious responses from that. Boy, I ruffled some feathers. However, during the comments and the conversations in the comments below, I did learn a lot of things. Apparently the trick to having a fairing wrapped around your SSTO and making it dragless, or very little drag, it's an actual trick more than it is a construction piece or whatever, a build method. So it's not like you grab one of these like that and put something inside of it, but rather before you put something inside of it, you actually take a nose cone that's the same diameter and put it right there. This eliminates the drag that goes all the way out that we were witnessing earlier. Although I think you have to also, whoops, I think you have to also put a nose cone on this side too or something. And then of course you take the body of whatever it is you're going to put in there, kind of stick it on the side. Oh crap, it doesn't stick on the side. Well, you know, find a part that sticks on the side and then put it in there, and you put that back, and then everything inside of the fairing becomes dragless. And the fairing itself creates very little drag because you got a nose cone in front inside of it, and then you got a nose cone on the back of it attached to the green nodes. So here's what I mean, right? I built something that's aerodynamically not really all that great. I put it inside of a fairing, but not before I built the fairing like this. Empty on the inside, and then you have a nose cone right here and a nose cone behind it. Then you simply attach the butt end here onto the side of the Airstream protective shell, and then you just bring it on in there just like that. And then there you go. Now, amazingly enough, this does create very little drag. There's like a teeny tiny little piece of drag coming out of here, and of course the wings and the engines creates a little bit of drag, but that's about it. So yes, the drag thing does work. It's a trick. It's a trick to it where you have to put a nose cone on one end and then put the body and slide it down and stuff, but it's there, it's possible, it's doable, it's a trick. However, we have to test it, right? So I put the same amount of fuel, the same amount of everything, only without a fairing, and I tested it, and well, the differences between the delta V left over when it got into orbit was not that much difference. Now, a lot of people said that, oh, that's because of the fact that it's more efficient. Well, the reason why it doesn't have a whole bunch of delta V is because it weighs more when it gets into orbit, because it has more liquid fuel, because it's more efficient when it gets up there. So it's technically carrying more into orbit, which is why your delta V is so low. So I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. So I lowered the liquid fuel for both crafts and did it over again, but I was still getting the same results. You see, the thing is that yes, there's very little drag that this nose cone fairing creates, which does help the SSTO get up there quicker. But the problem is, once it gets up there, drag is not the issue, weight is the issue. The fairing already weighs about almost 4 tons. Once you get past the drag phase, 4 tons is, well, enough to really lower your delta V. Whereas without the extra weight, you're able to go further, faster, and technically if you were to have a payload, you could get more up there. So technically, even though the SSTO that does have the fairing surrounding it does have a pinch more delta V left over when it gets up there, a craft like this is not too far behind. Because even though, yes, it has to make up for the transit from ground to air to space with a whole bunch of drag, that extra 4 tons does make a difference. Having a fairing cover your entire SSTO is like having one of these strapped to your back. It's definitely extra weight, and you're going to feel it when you're trying to get into orbit. However, overall, the fairing did produce better results when it got into orbit, albeit a little bit. However, in my mind, that little bit of result, is it really worth it? Because let's face it, I'm somewhat of an artist as well as a Kerbal engineer. Is that a thing? Yes? No? Okay, good talk. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I like my crafts to be aesthetically pleasing. This, compared to this, well, there is no comparison. It's just damn right ugly. Now, of course, I can work my magic and make it look real sexy. But the fact of the matter would remain is that you still got that dead fairing weight. That once you start going into space, becomes very noticeable. And even though, yes, you'll still have a tiny pinch more delta V than not having one, I guess if you're going for that extra few meters per second delta V, having one would be what you want. So I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it some more. How do I take this fairing trick and take its powers of taking drag away from your craft without having the downfall side effect of its weight being a burden? And then it clicked. I remembered that the mechanics of KSP doesn't doesn't really read the outside of the part. What it does is it calculates everything from inside that little green circle. The little green circle is pretty much the brain of every part, the nervous system, if you will. It tells the computer what part it is, how fast it can go before it burns up, all this other good stuff, impact tolerance, connection strength, you name it. So for the fairing, it doesn't need to cover up the entire part. It simply needs to cover up those connection nodes. If the connection node is inside of a fairing, it deems the part inside of a fairing. And so I came up with this initially. Ta-da! Basically, I reduced the weight of the fairing by making it smaller throughout the craft. And of course, at the very end, I made like a little nose cone. Now, for those of you who have gutter buddy minds, you're probably going to see something else entirely. Now, the results were really promising, actually. I was actually getting more delta V. Well, I was saving more fuel getting up there than I was with the craft that didn't have any fairing, as well as the craft that had a huge fairing covering everything up. I was actually getting way more delta V when I got up there, left over. So I started testing with less thrust to see if it would do anything, if it would, you know, be able to save more fuel when it got up there, because these rapiers are about 2 tons a piece. So that's 4 tons altogether if I get rid of 2 on, or get rid of 2 by 1 on either side. And yeah, lo and behold, I actually got more delta V when I got up there. So I went for 2 rapiers on either side. And yeah, I actually got even more delta V when I got up there. I had to stay more sea level to build up some more speed, but it worked. Now, after a while of looking at it, I realized that I was being held back because technically this fairing is freaking huge. I thought to myself, well, all I gotta do is cover up the connection nodes. That's it. And I can erase all drag. So why don't I just get a smaller fairing, start from way back here, and just have it shoot across the entire length of the craft? And boom, there it is. Now I had to add extra wings because I was adding more parts and the thing was getting heavier, so it needed more lift. Which, by the way, somebody said that fairings create lift. I actually didn't see that in any of the tests. The little piece that the fairing is built from had some lift, but in comparison to, of course, all of these parts right here, these were all creating, each individual part was creating lift, body lift, compared to that one little piece. So I kind of think that fairings don't create lift worth a damn. I'm just saying, it's in the tests. I was getting more lift out of this with little spikes of blueness compared to the one fairing part that was like, I was getting And of course the wings, their dark blue indicators were like, fwah, just fwah, way up there. But anyway, can you guess where the fairing is? Here, let me help you out. Ta-da! I know it looks like a golden Q-tip swab. However, this fairing, it covers all of the connection nodes that goes through the entire craft. So the game reads the entire fuselage of this craft as stowed away in a fairing, producing very little, almost barely any drag, except for the cargo bay. For some reason, the cargo bay still registers as if it's outside. Oh well, you win some, you lose some, right? But I wasn't done yet. During testing, this actually popped, the aerodynamic nose cone. It unfortunately wasn't registering that it was inside the craft. It was also creating the most drag besides the cargo bay. So instead what I did was I put an aerodynamic, well, I put a shock cone air intake on the front, since as I was, since in my SSTO how to build video, I made it. I said that one shock cone can safely power up to 4 rapier engines. They can actually power up to 6, but then you're pushing it once you put a 7th one in there. Even with 6, you're still kind of pushing it. And you need to be making sure that you're kind of moving forward at a good speed. Even with these 4 rapiers under one the shock cone air intake, I have to take off slowly, get some speed going before I can go full throttle. But that's true with anything. However, the engines, I actually put little fairings. I noticed that if you make the fairings really pointy, the drag is meh. It's just Of course, we tested that out in the last video. Remember, I was going for the whole Matt Lone approach to SSTOs, and surprisingly, this kind of design was producing very little drag that was coming out right there. So I remembered that and added it to this, instead of course, the aerodynamic nose cone. This one right here, which we actually found out in the same video, I believe. Why aren't you letting me click it? Hello? Anyway, we actually found out that they produce a lot of drag, surprisingly. However, I think they're still better than the advanced nose cones, only because of the fact that the advanced nose cones are more than twice as heavy as the aerodynamic nose cone. And while drag is important, weight is very, very important. Drag will help you get through half of the atmosphere, but after that, drag becomes meh. It's all about the weight. Now, I should add that these wings do have a dihedral design, which means they kind of come up a little bit. And with this design, I was playing with a little bit of a wing tilt, which means this side is a little bit higher and this side is a little bit lower. I was playing around with that, but this thing reaches incredible speeds so quickly that it almost becomes, you know, not really necessary. I mean, I guess it helps out with the first couple of feet, but yeah. All right, let's test it out and take a good look at it. Do I already have a full crew in here? No. All right, there we go. Everybody's strapped in. Wow, that's a lot of green. Everybody looks so happy. We're going on a trip. He's like,
this thing's safe, right? She's like, I'm sure it is.
So now that we've packed on some weight because everybody has their belongings with them, aka parachutes and RCS pack, let's give it a go. And let's see here. Turn on the engines, brakes off, and just give it a little bit of thrust. And let's get started moving. Build up some more airspeed. Get some of that nice, fresh air intake air. As we get a little faster, we'll put a little bit more thrust behind it. A little faster, more thrust. Okay, floor it. Hit F12, pitch up, gears up, pitch down, and we're going to travel about sea level for almost till we reach about 300 meters per second, and then we're just going to let her fly. All right, we're at 300. I'm just going to let go now. Just let go. Let it have it. Notice the drag on this thing. The only drag we're getting is from that pesky cargo box, but it starts to quickly go away. Look at that. Look at the drag. The wings are creating the most of the drag. Other than that, that's it. And this isn't even drag to really worry about because it's not really that much. Now, if it was sticking out way out here, I'd be worried, but this is chump change drag. Matter of fact, I christened the
chump change drag.
Now, I've gotten as high as almost 1100 meters per second left over, and there's almost about as much oxidizer as there is liquid fuel. But yeah, isn't that awesome? For the longest time, fairings for SSTOs was really hard for me to swallow because of the simple fact that it was just dead weight. Once you get past about 14,000 meters in the atmosphere, drag starts to really not be a problem, but weight starts to increasingly become a problem. So while fairings is great up to that point, they then become somewhat dead weight as you go from 15,000 meters all the way up to 70,000 meters or more. Plus, unless you were really creative, it just looked ugly as hell on the outside of the craft. But I couldn't deny that having a fairing in something inside the fairing did kill the drag, even though there was a really weird trick to it where you had to put a aerodynamic nose cone on the inside as well as the outside and then have whatever you wanted inside the fairing. But still, the fact that it did get rid of the drag, I wanted that. I just didn't want the huge gigantic weight. So that's when I built the best of both worlds. By making the fairing extremely thin and small, you reduce the weight to a very minimalistic amount, but yet you get to keep the effects of it being hidden inside of a fairing, which produces very little drag. Now when it comes to cargo SSTOs, well, there might be some problems, but for all other SSTOs like passengers and whatnot, this could work. Now, I'm not saying that no one has ever done this before. I mean, it would make sense to do this since the killing power of the Delta V killing power of fairings would be their weight, but yet you want their ability to hide or mask the drag. So the only option would be to make them super small. Try to decrease the weight to the point where it really becomes nothing, but yet keeping that ability of virtually no drag. So I'm sure somebody's come up with it before. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm the first one. It just makes sense to do. This makes sense to me. I like this. A near dragless SSTO using fairings while at the same time not really using the fairing as a fairing. Does that make sense? You're more or less using it as a type of loophole in the game mechanics. Now, does it feel cheaty? Yes, it most certainly does. But I guess if you're going for the ultimate SSTO numbers, or as some people were commenting, record-breaking SSTOs, then I guess you could incorporate this kind of thing into your design. Okay, so there, everybody's happy, right? We got the fairing SSTO fanboys that are happy. I'm happy. I get my aesthetically pleasing look without the ridiculous good golly Miss Molly giant fairing. So there you go. Now, let me know in the comments below, do you think this is getting getting on par with like a Kraken drive or a loophole mechanic in the loophole. What? Loophole in the mechanic game mechanics that feels kind of cheaty. Kind of like what air hogging was years ago before they fixed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Again, I want to thank you all for your civility. Is that even a word? In the previous video before this, we had a lot of people that had a lot of passion for their SSTO fairings, but ultimately the comment section was very civil. Like I said, I learned a lot. Maybe I'll use this technique in some of my SSTOs. The one I came up with having a teeny tiny little Q-tip swab fairing going straight through the middle. We'll see. Like I said, it does feel a little on the cheaty side, but let me know in the comments below of what you think. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and thank you so much for watching and being a part of this channel. If you liked what you saw, consider liking the video, and if you really liked what you saw, consider subscribing. I upload videos almost every day. Well, it's every other day, but I've been a little slow lately because I got a lot on my plate. I know I've got a lot of people who want me to continue with the Duna expansion series, so I probably will be working on that as well. But yeah, look forward to what is today? Oh, they're all blurring together. I've been working so hard. Okay, today's Monday. Yes, today's Monday. And so you're going to be looking at this Tuesday morning. Then I'll be working on another video Wednesday, and then there's another one coming out Thursday morning. Yes, me do math good. All right, everyone. Love you all. Please stay safe. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Let me try to land this thing.